The second came from southern province. Again, I saw in Delman Hospital. This child is the boy about maybe 9, 10 years old. It happened a few years ago, so I forgot the exact age. So this child came because the complaint was that he is having seizures, valipu, fits. Medications, all the medications were given for 2 years. Imagine 2 years of anti-seizure medication. All these medications work in the brain. So there's a lot of side effects in medications. All seizure medications, for the fits medications, have side effects. Again, that medication itself can cause hyperactivity, cognitive developmental problems, and particularly maths, they won't be able to do maths in the school. So these are main issues. They are cognitive development, intellectual development which is affected. So this is due to the side effects of the medicine that is given to fits. But on top of that, this child is being treated for fits, but the fits never stopped. 2 years. So they came with a lot of things. A mother, father, and the child came. Somewhere from Matre or somewhere. So they came with a bag where there is a EEG and CT scan, MRI scan, you name all these investigations, everything was done. It's a big bag. They came and said, doctor, this is what it is. The seizure is going on, but it's not cured yet, or it's not even controlled yet. So I went through all the investigations, and I found that everything was normal. EEG was normal, CT scan was normal, MRI scan was normal. There's nothing wrong in that. Then I was asking them, I asked them to show me how the seizure type is. So they told me, they said that I have a video. Okay, show me the video. They showed me the video. The moment I saw the video, I knew that it is not the known epileptic seizure type, right? And there was one clue in that. That is, normally with the seizures, with the fits, your consciousness is lost. But in this child, the consciousness was not lost. But for somehow, the doctors didn't pick it up, right? So they treated for these fits. Then I found that, then the way that the video was, when they played the video, the child was doing some action that's like a seizure. It looks like a fit, but it's not fit. It is one of the things that is happening in one of the cartoons. These cartoon characters do a lot of odd things, some actions and, activities. So the child was copying a cartoon character and doing it on and off. So it was the cartoon character. The child just copied the cartoon character and did that. So that was treated as fits. Or that child was having lots of issues because they treat for that 2 years. And again, that child was a hyperactivity and learning difficulties, no focus, and all that was there. So then they said, so what we should do now? Then at that point, there's an interesting thing happened again. So I told them that this is not fits. I said I took all the medications. It was there a lot. I put everything in the bin. I said all these medication, drugs goes to bin, right? And forget about this. This is not fits. This is the effect of electronically damaged child's behavior. It's a behavioral problem, not epilepsy, not fit. Then the father got angry with mother, right? And he was scolding the mother. You only allowed him this and that. I told him, you're in front of me. I imagine, my God, what happens at home, right? So I told him, hang on a second. Is it your child as well, right? So If there's a problem at home, if the child was not brought up properly, if the child is exposed to electronic screen, the blame goes to both the father and the mother. You can't just blame the mother. What happened to your responsible fatherhood? Right? And then he became silent. And finally he said, so I explained to him, this is how you have to do, electronic fast, vitamin N, responsible fatherhood, sharp motherhood. This is the treatment. This is what I explained to him. Then he said, but he was insisting me, Doctor, some medications. I said, well, I can write a prescription, but you won't buy it in pharmacy. Then he said, wherever it is, I will buy. Okay, I எழுதி கொடுத்தேன். What I wrote was Suttiyal, hammer. I said you can buy it in, you can't buy it in pharmacy, but you may buy it in a hardware shop. Right? Take it and go and destroy the electronics. Honestly, I said that. And you know what did he say? He said, Doctor, இது ஜோக் இல்லை, நான் சுத்தியில் வாங்க தேவையில்லை, வீட்டில் சுத்தியில் இருக்குது, நான் வீட்டுக்கு போய்த்து இன்றைக்கு முதலாவது செய்கிறவையில் அந்த டிவியை உடைக்கிறது தான். I said, good. Right? He's gone. Anyway, they didn't come after that. That's number 2. Another case, now I have hundreds, but only I've said I can tell you only 3, because that's to give you an idea. The third one I saw in Eastern Province, and I have a clinic in the Eastern as well. So I have 2 clinics. One is in Colombo, the other one is in the East. So that's why I come here every month like. So in that Eastern clinic, again a boy, about 4 or 5 years, he came. So I asked him, what's the name? He said, Enabel Benton. Your name is Perana? Benton. Then the father was there. Father said, Doctor Parangale, Doctor, Rasikend Alaha Per Vichikran, Benton and Children. Right. So honestly, he became a Benton. Right? Every action is like a Benton. It's again a cartoon character. Right? And hyperactivity and all these things are there. So he literally, he changed to that Benton character, cartoon character. He became very destructive at home. Right? And, I think he was in grade 1, maybe 6 years old. So the teachers said that they cannot teach him. So he was out of school because he was so hyperactive and not learning and things like that. So these are the few cases that I have, so many. But what I'm trying to say is that now a generation of children are getting destroyed by electronics. I'm telling this with responsibility, after seeing thousands of children for the last 20 years. Actually, now the first article I wrote in Ceylon Today in UK, it was published in Sri Lanka, in a Ceylon Today 1 full-page article in 2016, I think. I wrote that, exposing that this is what's happening. And I've been talking about this more than 15 years, right? Because of the number of cases I saw. But only now it is coming into the medical journals, and very soon it's coming to the textbooks. So it is very important to make our parents aware that these electronics are really, really damaging our children. So with that introduction and some idea, let me go through some slides. It's going to be a bit, slides, maybe there's a lot of information in that, but if you want, you can take a photograph of that so that you have some information if you need, some scientific papers and all that. I'll quickly go through. I'm not going to tell everything in the slides, but I'll quickly go through the slides. So to tell you what is the science and what is happening, why it happens and all that, some scientific aspects. Maybe it will be boring sometime like a medical school class, but I try to make it as simple as possible. And then after that, we can have a question and answer session so that if you have any doubts, we can talk about that. Okay. Right. So now, if you had the electronics at home, we know that the electronics, what we don't remember or what we forget is that the electronics at home is the very powerful member of the family. Don't forget that. Our children are influenced by the parents and the home. Our children are influenced by home. When the home environment our children live, whatever the home environment or whatever the nature of the home environment is going to be their outcome, right? So if we have a nice, better, intellectually stimulating home, emotionally stimulating home, spiritually stimulating home, if we have that, we will have a nice product. But if you don't have that, and the product can be, I don't know what is the product is going to be, it all depends on what is the other member of the family. The very powerful member of the family is the electronic screen. Don't forget that. And not only the powerful member, it's a highly influencing member. Because now the father is busy, the mother is busy. The only person or the only power that is not busy and highly available 24/7, whenever the child needs. When the child needs, there's no dad. The child needs, there's no mother sometime. But when the child needs, yes, there is the electronic screen. So it's a very powerful influencing member, right? And children get connection. The behavior and a child's behavior and the values and things, how a child behave or how a child react or respond, it all depends on how a brain is wired. The brain, now if anything is, there are two things that our behavior is decided by two things. One is avoiding the pain. The second thing is going for pleasure. If you put our psychology into two words, if you know this, you don't need to read books, hundreds of books to understand it. There are books written, hundreds of books written. But if I can summarize that for you with two words. Everything that we do as human, everything we do, our behavior, all depends, if you can put it into two things. One is we are doing it to avoid pain or to get a pleasure, right? Say, for example, we are going to today we went to the mosque and prayed Fajr. So that behavior, that activity, why did we do that, right? Now we have connected that behavior with pleasure. Okay, we need to be connected to spirituality. We need to connect it to God. So with that, you get a pleasure. So to get that pleasure, that behavior is there. Or then, of course, if I don't do that, I might get punished. So it's not, so I need to do this because I'm going to die one day and I have to face the consequences. So I don't want to face the pain. So I avoid the pain, I take the pleasure. So that will, influence your behavior, right? Children are like that. Children, they always look for these two, right? They want to get the pleasure. The most important pleasure the child has is the presence of the mother and the father, right? But if they are not there, what happens? The child will go for alternative. Then the child will find pleasure in the next family member available, that is electronics. And then they find the pleasure, and the child will connect to that. Then the brain will get that circuit formed. So the child will be constantly connected to that. This family member is very friendly and non-critical and always there, right? So this family member has a higher chance of, being in a good book of the child, unlike the father and the mother, right? The impact of electronic screen in children is, as I said, that it's destroying the children. A generation is getting destroyed. I'm witnessing it. That's why we wanted to talk about this here, right? We don't want children coming to the clinics after 3 years, 4 years with a diagnosis of autism. We have got so many. We need to arrest that. This epidemic needs to be arrested. So for that, the awareness should be, we need to make this a public discussion. It's a public health problem, right? So this destroys personalities of children, right? And it makes them addict, literally like a drug addict. As I said, what happens is when they watch the electronic screens, your dopamine level will go up in your brain, right? And it's constantly up, right? And then that will give you a kick. The kick, these heroin addicts get the kick. That is because that releases the dopamine. Then the next time, that dopamine is not enough to get that kick, So then you go for a bigger dose, then bigger dopamine dose. Then you get saturated with that. And then you go for a bigger saturation. With that level of dopamine is not enough to give you that kick. And then you go further. So like that, you become addicted and you get into that loop. So then when you get into that loop, the children get into the bubble. It's called electronic bubble. When they get into that bubble, that's a different world. It's not this common world that we had in the past. It's their electronic world. So in that world, there's no language. You don't need to speak, right? That world, you can be an autistic and stay in that world, right? Getting this dopamine, addiction. Okay, so it develops into addiction. It has an hypnotic effects. I've seen that. This because of the hypnotic effect. Now, when you would have experienced this. When a child is watching TV, if you call them, they won't respond, right? They won't listen to you. They won't respond. As if that they didn't hear. Actually, they didn't hear. They won't hear. Because they go into effects that's called hypnotic effects. These screen can cause hypnotic effects, right? That will make them dull, stupid, and shy. And they'll be aggressive, vulnerable, cannot get along with others. So these are the features you find in these children. And because they go into that hypnotic trance mode, whatever you say they will not listen to that because they won't hear that. And that's why it's called a trance-like state, right? Those who know hypnotism, they know that. You can hypnotize a person and get them into a trance state and give any suggestion. If you give any suggestion, they will accept it 100%. So the mental status is not active or alert, right? There is an intellectual shutdown. This is the most important point. There is an intellectual shutdown. That takes place. That is why these children become stupid. These children become non-verbal. These children become cognitive, their cognitive power is significantly damaged. There is a shutdown, intellectual shutdown, right, by electronic screen. Then the bigger problem is, now we might think that, these electronic screens are causing damage. Of course, yes. But the bigger problem is not what the electronic screen is doing to the child. The bigger problem is what is not happening at that time. Say, let's, for example, now these 3 years, now take this example of that child who came from Switzerland. 3 years, right? The child was constantly exposed to electronics. There was no vitamin N. There was no responsible fatherhood and sharp motherhood, right? Right. Now, think about, can you reverse these 3 years? The 3 years gone. The earth rotated, right? It's done. The sun, its journey is completed. It is not going to go back. There is no the counterclockwise movement again. So that is done. So that 3 years, the child should have been stimulated intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, supporting the growth and the development of the brain, their soul, their emotions, everything. But that didn't happen. That's the more serious damage is what did not happen than what happened. Right? What did not happen? Right? The child, the intellectual and social development not stimulated. The bigger problem is what does not happen when a child is glued to electronics. Right? Intellectual and social development is not stimulated. Who is going to? Do you think that? I can tell you that even if Einstein is coming on TV and teaching maths, that child becomes stupid. I will guarantee you. Even Einstein is coming on the TV and, and teaching maths every day, that child is going to become stupid. Because, that's not the way the children are getting stimulated and growing. Right? So one of the powerful stimulation for children is emotion. In the brain, if you take the brain, right, I'm medically talking about that now. There are 2 aspects in the brain. One is called outer cortex area, cortical area, and the inner core is called limbic system. That's the emotional part. There was a professor called Professor Saitovic. He's from Washington University. He's one of the neurologists there. He has done a research and he found that in one of his paper, I have his paper, he says that he has found the signals going from inner core to the outer surface, not from outer surface to the inner core, right? The signals are more signals he can see from inner core to the outer surface. That means a child, so outer core is the cortex area in the brain. That is where the cognitive power, your intellectual power is determined by the outer cortex, right? So the signal comes to that from inner area. What is the inner area? That's the emotional area. That means if your child is emotionally balanced, if a child feels that the child is loved, valued, and respected, that means you are saturating the inner core of the child's brain. Then the signal will go up, causing intellectual development. So for the intellectual development, the input is emotion. That's what I'm trying to say. Right? So the more emotional input you give, if you want to, you want to have an intellectually developed child, what do? Give them more hugs and kiss. Then they become intellectually powerful. Why? The intellectual stimulation comes from emotional stimulation. That is the science I'm talking about. It's a neuroscience, proven science. Right? So, that is not happening in this child. When the children are connected to the electronic screen, that's not happening. Again, the brain grows only 3-4 years. You know, if you measure my brain now, if you measure your brain, you can do this test if you go home. Take a measuring tape. Just measure your brain, right? Your skull. Like from here, from occiput from this side and to the front here. Just take a measurement like that. It's going to be 55 centimeter. On average, it is 54, 55 centimeter, right? My brain, my head size is 55 centimeter. Yours, I'm sure it will be 55 or 56 or 54, but the brain size is the same, but there can be a little bit of variation, 1 or 2 centimeters. That's normal. So what is the size of the brain size in a newborn child? The child just born. What is this? How many centimeters? 34 centimeters. That means 63% of adult brain is at the time of birth. That shows how important it is the pregnant period. During the pregnancy, brain grows 63%. Right? So if you want a child who should be intellectually powerful, emotionally good, and become a global citizen, leader, a professional, and a good man or good woman, if you wait for a child to be born, you miss the bus. Because you miss the 63% of the brain growth. So that is why a sharp mother started the project plan before the child was born. إِذْ قَالَتِ امْرَأَةُ عِمْرَانَ رَبِّي إِنِّي نَظَرْتُ لَكَ مَا فِي بَطْنِي. So you need to focus that. So that means if you need a child you want a child who is, want to become intellectually powerful and, a professional or a leader, a global citizen and all that, we have dream. Of course, we have dream about our children. We have to dream. But the dream, like, late Mr. Abul Kalam said, his dream is not something that we dream from the bed in sleeping. The dream is something that will not allow you to sleep. That is the dream. So you dream about our children, and that will wake you up early to do something for the child. So that is 63%. Then the first year, 23% is added. That means you are celebrating the first birthday of your child. The child has got 86% of the brain, adult brain. Second year, 94%. Third year, 99%. Fourth year, gone, 100%. See, now you're going to admit your child to grade 1. Have you realized you're admitting a child to grade 1, but your child's brain is 100% grown, finished, no further growth. So how important it is to have a nuclear family unit at home, how important it is to have a home that is emotionally stimulative, intellectually stimulative, and spiritually also stimulative. Because these are the 3 areas that a child needs. Because a child is a human. It's not just body. It has a brain, it has a heart, it has a soul. So, what is missing in a child who is constantly exposed to the electronics is that these things are missing. And if you miss that, the child has become 3 years old and not experienced these things, then of course you will have a mentally handicapped child. There was a study in Harvard University. This study actually was in response to in USA, the power they were investing a lot of money, billions of dollars to alleviate poverty. Their poverty level was, their standard of poverty is different, different level. But say, for example, 19% or something was in 60s. I think this happened, 60s or 70s. Was 19%. Was the poverty level was 19% based on their criteria. So the government decided this is very high, we had to get it to single figure. They tried. They invested a lot of money, right? Billions of dollars. And after some time, they did the test again and statistics, they found that, they didn't come to the single figure, nowhere near. They dropped by only 2 or 3. So then the government said to Harvard University, tell us a strategy, how we can improve poverty without investing a lot of money. But this strategy of investing money, giving food, right, improving the nutrition, food nutrition has not helped. So then the Harvard did a research. And they found, and finally they said, they found a solution to that. That's why it is Harvard University, right? Because they go into detail. They understand human. They understand the science. They understand the psychology. They understand the emotion. They understand all these things. Because these are all science, right? The good part of it is, but as a student of science, of course, I'm a student of the Quran as well. And what I find is so fascinating is, as a student of the Quran, I understand better science, more science. And as a student of the Quran, I understand more science. As a student of the Quran, science, I understand more Quran. So that's very complementary. That's why I was, one of the very pride moment for me was in 2017, I think. I was invited by Oxford University for a lecture by the Students' Union. So I delivered a lecture in Oxford University for 90 minutes. The title was Role of Contemporary Medical Science in the Deeper Understanding of the Quran. So that was so powerful. I was really fascinated by that, because how the science helps to learn the Quran, how the Quran helps to learn the science. That is amazing. That has a synergistic effect. Anyway, so the Harvard University study, after studying that problem, what did they say? They said, don't invest your money in giving food, improving food nutrition. Don't do that. That's waste of your money. Then what to do? They said, improve the language nutrition. Right? So the new word is coming up now. They said, improve language nutrition. Then you might ask, what is language nutrition means? Right? The language nutrition means how many words you know. That's your nutrition, your language nutrition. And they said, now take, this is actually they took 3-year-old children. They took 3-year-old children and 2 groups. One group of 3-year-old children, they know only words less than 600. There was another 3-year-old children, they know words more than 1,200. These are 2 groups. This group, children who know words less than 600. The other group, the children who know words more than 1,200. Obviously, this group is language nutrition is high. In this group, less than 600, their language malnourished. Now, the Harvard University is following these two groups. And they found that the group where there is a language malnutrition, word less than 600, they have a lot of dropouts. They didn't get into universities. They didn't get professional jobs. They were not contributors to nation building. They were not in a good positions in the community. Their earning power was very, very low. There were no skilled workers. They are all mainly the manual workers and all that. So they were the burden to the government. Whereas, on the other hand, the children with the more than 1,200 words, that means their language nutrition is very good. They all had a very good results, O-level, A-level. They went into universities and they became leaders, professionals. They were contributing to society, to nation building. Right? So, Harvard University said the only way to improve the poverty is to improve language nutrition. Right? So what is the outcome of improving language nutrition? That means the more language you know, then if you know more words, you will have a better understanding. Because only if you know the words, you know the meaning of it, you can understand the philosophies, you can understand the ideas, you can understand the other people, what they are talking about, right? And, you can intellectually, you will be accommodative and all that. So, the number of words at 3 years determines the child's outcome. That's what I'm trying to say. A number of words your child knows at 3 years of age is, to some extent, I wouldn't say the determining factor, but most likely the determining factor of its outcome. So if a child comes at 3 years with 0 words in all these electronically damaged children, just imagine the outcome. You should be having 1,200 words at that time. How do you get that 1,200 words at 3 years of age? Right? Again, involvement, interaction, responsible fatherhood, sharp motherhood, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually stimulating home environment, connecting to the nature, exposing the child to active, dynamic play, activities, interaction. That's very powerful, very important, right? So that's why I'm saying what does not happen when a child is glued to the electronics is more damaging than what happens, right? So intellectual and social development not stimulated, thousands of words not spoken and responded to by parents and siblings, thousands of questions not asked and answered by parents and siblings. As I said, if you miss that period at 4 years, the brain is closed. It doesn't mean the brain can't, what I'm saying by brain is closed means the growth is done. That means the foundation, the size of the brain is not going to grow further after 4 years. Not even a single centimeter, no. But the number of cells inside the brain, there are trillions of neurons inside the brain. And the power of the brain depends on the connection between two nerve cells. There are connections. The more the connections between the cells, the powerful, the more intellectually stimulated the brain will be. So how do you get the connections? The connections are built by interaction, by love, by when you hug a child, there you go, there are some connection built. You hug a child and give a kiss, few connections are exposed, connections are built. You take the child to market and show them, oh, this is fish, so this is a plant, or this is this, oh, this is your uncle. And the uncle hugs him and kisses him and say hello, says smile, and says assalamu alaikum, how are you? You know, these small moments, with every exposure, a connection is built. The exposure and the experience the child gets is the ultimate, the more exposure and the experience the child gets will be the better stimulated brain the child will get. So that's very important. So that is why what is not happening is very important. So there is a scientific journal, there are a lot of journals, but I've just got one. It says that the possession of an own TV in a child's bedroom appears to be an important independent risk factor for expressive language impairment in preschool children. If a child is impaired with language, the language is the most powerful stimulation, the most powerful development. So we have to make sure that the child has a good language nutrition. Right? So this book, I recommend if you can buy this book, it's available on Amazon, The Reset Your Child's Brain. This is a book that was written by an American pediatrician called Dr. Victoria Dunkley. I have an email connection with her. She's one of authority in this area. She has written this book. We are talking about epidemic autism. See, my work on this area, we shared with her, and she has done a lot of research on this. Now, what she clearly says is the incidence of autism is increasing, as I told you. The use of methylphenidate is increasing. Now, the methylphenidate is a drug that we prescribe. We call it Ritalin. We prescribe for hyperactivity. That is increasing. Children with learning and difficulties increasing. Emotionally detached children become emotionally detached, right? Hyperactivity, ADHD, aggressive and violent children increasing, right? So these are the main problems. If you want to read that book, that will give you all about this electronic screen damage, right? So the negative effects of electronic screen depends on the time you spend and the content and the images, the shifting of images. For example, now if a child is looking at Tom and Jerry cartoon, right? What they have found was if the screen is changing more than 12 per minute, the child is bound to get hyperactivity, right? Now, those who have watched the Tom and Jerry will know how many times the screen will change within a minute in Tom and Jerry. It's so quick, right? So it will keep on changing at least more than 30, 40 times. So that means the child is bound to get hyperactivity because of that factor alone. And more than that, people think, now sometimes they have said that, when I speak to them, so what cartoon are you watching? Oh, they will say that, this is just a Tom and Jerry, right? We all watch it, okay? It's not just a Tom and Jerry, right? That is more damaging, of course, in many ways. One thing is the number of screens you see within a minute, how many times it's changing. That causes the problem to the eyes and it causes the hyperactivity problem. More than that, the Tom and Jerry will inculcate a feeling, an idea to your child without you and the child knowing in a subconscious level, saying what? What is the take-home message in the Tom and Jerry? Right? For you to be happy, you have to hurt someone. That's the message in Tom and Jerry. Right? What happens? The cat will hurt the mouse, the rat, and then it will be smiling. That means the children get the idea, for you to be happy, you have to hurt someone. That is why the violence is very high now. Right? So it could be looking like an innocent babysitter, which is free, readily available, reliable, safe. But remember, this babysitter is extremely dangerous. Right? So this is what I was telling you about the brain. You know this colored area here, this is the emotional area of the brain. Right? It's a limbic system, and this is the intellectual part of the brain, particularly this area. Right? So if you want to develop this area, you need to charge this area. This is the brain battery. If you want to charge, if you charge this area, the brain battery, just like your iPhone needs charging to the current, then only the phone will work. You can expect whatever the phone has to do by charging the battery through the electric, right? You need current. So similarly, to charge the brain of children, for the brain to work, to become intellectually powerful, it's not the current that you need. This battery needs emotion. The only language this part of brain understands is emotions. Right? Hugging a child, kissing a child, telling the child, I love you. I'm so proud of you. You're so nice. You are such a gift from God. Okay. See, simple words. Last week in the UK, one of a Sri Lankan parent called me at around 9 p.m. Right? This happened last week. I was on call in the hospital. He didn't know. Well, I have never met him before. I didn't recognize the number. But he called. And on the others, right? Then he said, Doctor, I'm in a desperate situation. I need your help, very desperate. So what can I do at this time? 9 o'clock, I'm on call in my hospital. He's calling from about 60 miles away, right? I said, so where are you now? He said, I came to OPD, outpatient department, accident and emergency unit in that particular, city with my son. How old is your son? 16 years old. What happened? He is addicted to drugs and Sri Lankan Muslims, right? So he's addicted to drugs. I brought him to, no, they didn't know that he was addicted because there was no sharp responsible fatherhood. There's no sharp motherhood in that family. That it was not emotionally, spiritually, intellectually stimulating home, right? So that's sort of a family. So I came to know later. I know that, of course, that is, if the family is like that, they end up like this, the children. So he said that, no, my son is involved in these things, and he was having cannabis and this and that. So the last 3 days, we only came to know last 3 days ago, and we caught him. So we didn't allow him to go out of home. So we kept him at home, and now today he started shivering, the withdrawal effects, right? And headache, he's sweating, and he's shivering, he's sweating, and he has a severe headache, he's vomiting. I brought to the hospital, and the hospital says that it is a cannabis withdrawal. They can't do anything now. They have to refer to GP, and the GP has to refer to psychiatrist. So that's going to be on the waiting list. It's going to be about 3 to 6 months or something for him to get some medicine and some advice and all that. So what can I do, doctor? I need your help now. Right? This is the call it came only last week. So then, obviously, I was, I couldn't do anything. I said, okay, come and see. Okay, then he came. After 1 hour, it took 1 hour for him to drive. I came to my hospital. I was on call. And I saw him, and then he was actually shivering. So I gave some medications to control that problem at that point. And then I explained to the dad why it happens and all that. And then I asked only one question. I asked him, when did you last hug your son and kissed him? He said, அப்படி சொன்னார், போன பெருநாள் அன்று முஹாசபா செஞ்சு கொண்டேன்றார். That's what he said. So for the festival day, he did a hug. I said, பெருநாள் அன்று மட்டும்தான். அப்போ அது நீங்கள் ஒரு வாப்பாவாக ஃபீல் பண்ணிங்கன்னா, இல்லாட்டி அது ஒரு ரிச்சுவல். பெருநாள் அன்றைக்கி பள்ளிக்கு போகிற உடுக்கிற, ரைட், அது ஒரு ரிச்சுவலாக செஞ்சேன். Then I asked one question, are you a dad only on that day? Are you dad for him only on Eid day? Simple question. I can tell you, if you want to avoid children coming to that stage, right? I can see a pattern. For last 30 years, I've been a pediatrician and I've seen more than 200,000 children and families. I can clearly see a pattern. Very crystal clear. I see the community as a worm's view, not only bird's view. I can see what the problem is in the community at home level. I see a clear pattern. Right? Just one or two questions will come up. I'll ask this. I don't ask a lot of questions because I know exactly what is the problem, because it follows the pattern. If a child ends up at 16 years as a cannabis addict, I know there will be a pattern. And that pattern, one thing is the father is not the responsible, fatherhood is there. He's a father, of course. Right? But the mother will not be a sharp mother. But I found that in that family. Both were not there. So, what I'm trying to say is that if you want to avoid these things, it's not only to avoid them being cannabis addict or heroin addict. More importantly, if you want to develop this brain, you need to stimulate this, charge this battery, this brain battery with lots of emotions, love, respect, right? The trust, and value the child. And tell them, love is a verb, it's not a noun. What I mean by that is, if you say that you have a love towards your son or your spouse's husband, wife, it's not just a word, it's not a noun. It demands action, it's a verb. Love is a verb. I remember in the Quran also there was, some people, some Sahabas came to Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and said that we love Allah, right? Then there was a Quran ayah came. قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي. Again, there it is a proof to say that it is, the love is a verb. Then the Quran ayah says, قُلْ, tell them, in kuntum tuhibbun Allah, if you love Allah, there is an action that needs to be followed. You can't just say that. What is the action? Fattabi'uni, follow me. So, how do we tell our children that we love you? By showing our action. Right? The most important thing in children's life is how emotionally the mom and the dad is attached to a child. There was a celebrity called Bill Glass in the USA, I think in Texas. He was a football celebrity. He, after retirement, he said that he had a huge following. Millions of people were following because he was a football celebrity. He had a lot of money as well. So he decided that he wants to do some charity work. So then he started a charity called Behind the Walls. That means prisons. Behind the Walls. So he was working with convicted prisoners, murderers, rapists, and robbers, and all that. And he said, I was listening to his speech on the YouTube. Is there a lot of speeches there on the YouTube? You can listen to that. It's called Behind the Wall, Mr. Bill Glass. You get all this. in one of these speeches, there's a book written on that, so I read that book as well. What he says is, Bill Glass says that I have visited hundreds of thousands of prisons because of my work, my charity. I have met, lakhs of millions of convicted prisoners. He said there are a lot of difference in them. Some are white, some are black, some are European, some are American, some are Asians, different language, everything is different, right? But he said there's one thing was common in all prisoners. Do you know what that one thing is? So just imagine, everything is different, their language is different, color is different, content, everything is different, but one thing is common. Then he said that common thing is, you know what is that common thing? He said, I have never seen a single prisoner who loved his father. So that is the message, how important it is to have responsible fatherhood and interacting with children, involving, interacting, right? Having that responsible fatherhood. That itself is a different lecture. What is responsible fatherhood? Okay, so this is what it is. So I think the emotion is so important. I think these things I have already said that. Sometimes people say that we watch excellent programs. Yes, sometimes, this nature, morality, current events, yes, there are good ones. But still, you deprive yourselves of something more important. And even these programs, even this nature program and this and that, is after 3 years of age, not before that. Before 3 years, up to 3 years old, not a single minute of electronic screen should be exposed to children in any form, right? Your values are distorted with these programs, and the relationship are distorted. We already talked about that. So if a child wants to be success in school, there should be love of reading, the ability to get along with others, the habit of concentration and all that. It's all destroyed by this electronic screen. Now this is a newspaper article. It says, turn off Wi-Fi at night to stop children falling behind, says teachers. This is one of the UK paper, but I think this paper was in 2014, I think. So they recognize that children are falling in their academic achievement in the schools. It's a serious problem now. Actually, last week we had a meeting because I'm involved in that task force where we are getting, because we are getting the government intervention to bring this awareness to cut down the epidemic of this autistic spectrum disorder, hyperactivity, learning difficulties and all that. So this again, this paper, this is what I said in the Ceylon today. I wrote this, do cartoons make children violent? This is about this I think I wrote in 2016, right? But it's 7 years ago. By that time, I had about 10 years of data. That was in 2016. I started working on this from 2006. And based on that, I wrote this article, right? But the thing is, unfortunately, the incidence is increasing dramatically.